really great to have Richard at 4K joining us today.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, Richard, can you tell us what 4K is about?
Sure. So 4K's goal is to really bring physical assets on chain. This problem has been around for a really long time, but a lot of companies that did try to do this previously did it with what I call boomer assets, specifically real estate.
Right.
But I think it's like super boring. Like, who in crypto wants to go out and own a piece of a retirement home in Atlanta?
That's right.
They put it in compound Aave.
Yeah.
But what do we care about? I mean, the millennial dream these days is to not have a roommate. But what do we grow up caring about?
Yeah.
Pokemon cards, sneakers, even watches, collectibles, hypebeast stuff, right? Like a Jordan rookie card, Pogs, those fun items. And so I've always tried to think about, well, these are items I'm interested in. How do we bring on-chain? Because the friction and the fees in the traditional world are just so high.
That's
like when, what the problem is the core problem is a macroeconomic problem. What I mean by this is that the wealth disparity gap has grown so much and wages are not kept up with living expenses. And so what you see is this explosion of side hustles. Everyone has a side hustle.
That's true.
Side hustle. You know what if you're gonna try to make money on the side, like what do people really know growing up?
Right.
Sneakers,
that's right.
Trading cards, Pokemon cards. And so what they're doing is they're flipping these items.
Yeah.
But when they're flipping these items, it's so expensive to flip using PayPal, eBay. When we do the math, if you buy an item off eBay, you sell an item, you have to make 22 to 23% margin to break even. To me, that is a global tax against the working class. And so where 4K comes in is, I thought, well, how do we use blockchain and crypto and the financial primitives that crypto offers to really bring that down by a magnitude? Not like a 5% reduction, we're talking a 90+% reduction. And so that's a 4K. So 4K is very simple. You take a physical asset, generally investment-grade physical asset, stuff that people want to hold, not like something that's consumable like a USB cable. You send it to us, we authenticate it, store it, and insure it in our vaults, and then we issue you the NFT.
That's cool.
With that NFT, you can sell it on our marketplace, you sell it on other marketplaces, you can interact with DeFi, collateralize, get a loan against it, fractionalize on other protocols, primitives, ETFs. It opens up a whole new asset class to all of it. And afterwards, if you sell it to somebody else and they want the physical asset, they just send us the NFT, we burn it, and we just ship them the underlying.
That's cool.
Very simple. And I've pitched this idea so many times to so many companies over the last 4 years. It's frustrating that this doesn't exist today. It's it's actually really simple. Really, I think it's really straightforward.
I really like that. Richard, how did you get into the crypto space and now all the way to NFT?
Oh, right. So that's a long story, but I joined IRC at about 9 years old, and then I was on the Cyberpunk mailing list. Somehow stumbled onto that mailing list among many others. Yeah. So in the early days, I always joke about it. I was like typing this out to my friends, and I was like, how do I spell Bitcoin? Is it like BIT space COIN? Is it BIT? I used to write capital C, bits capital C coin in my emails, and I was like, space with a capital? I didn't know how to write it. And so been there for a long time. Early days, I say people say do you hold Bitcoin from the earliest? I'm like, the point is not the hodl. The hodl is not the hard thing. The hard part was to not lose it. Getting hacked, wallet getting hacked, losing. Every exchange was hacked. Every single exchange, Cryptseed, if people remember that back in the day. And then you'd buy some miners, Butterfly Labs. There's Ponzi schemes on Bitcoin stock. Pirate Tab 40, Epic. Right? This is some epic stuff in the back of the day. And so I've been around a long time, ran a venture fund for numerous years, and then started a validator company, helps out with a validator company. One of the largest ones called Certus One. And then, was recently acquired by Jump Trading. And here I am. I got the one problem that everyone talks about, but nobody's really found a cool solution. So I think what we're building is key, because what it is think of us as we were before Certus One was a blockchain validator. What we are now, 4K, is we're building a network of physical validators for physical assets. So essentially, I like to think it's like a layer 1 for physical assets, or arguably even layer 0, because what I mean by layer 0 is that if you send us the NFT on Ethereum, we can burn it and we can reissue it on Polkadot, Harmony, Solana, Flow, Cardano, Avalanche, anywhere. Because it doesn't need a bridge to be built, because we own the physical underlying, right? We can verify the physical underlying. Technically, I pitched to crypto people, I'm like, it's kind of like a layer 0.
Like that.
We're probably one of the few people that can transfer value between chains somehow. Wild, right?
Richard, how did you come up with the name 4K?
So I had this domain for a really long time. So at one point, this site used to do multiple million monthly visitors. But I always joke, people always ask me, I always joke it's simple. It's like, I say 4 commas. We're at 3 commas a joke from Silicon Valley. 4 commas, mentioning basically TVL. So I have a $1 trillion TVL.
Totally. Wow, I love that TV series Silicon Valley, right? And the 3 comma is really become the culture, right? 3 comma to be a billion,
Yeah.
4K to be a trillion.
4 trillion? Yeah, you gotta go big. You gotta go big.
And for yourself, Richard, you have been an investor. You have been really helping the whole ecosystem growth, even for validators. And now you're finally back to the builder mode. How does it feel?
Feels great. I think, what's one thing I talk about a lot of people at this conference is like a lot of friends that made a lot of money in crypto, and then they all just retired. I'm like, bro, you're like 32 years old. You got the energy, the youth, the money, the power, the knowledge,
experience,
and then you're like Kobe's like rookie year. The first inning of a baseball game, and then they retire. They go, and I don't mean mean. They go to Puerto Rico, and they just like sit on a boat, like kayak around in Puerto Rico, and I'm like, it really sucks. So I always say, like, life is too short. You got to do something epic. That's what I'm here for. I can sit on a yacht for the rest of my life, not interesting. Let's do something big, do something epic. Let's do something that actually really benefits the world as well. Right? I think bringing down like the cost of transactions for physical assets by 95 to 95, if not higher. Our goal is a 99% reduction relative to what it is today. I think that's a ton of value for the world. And like building a globalized peer-to-peer market that's actually owned by the people as opposed to some middleman that dictates everything. I think it's the goal. It's the goal of humanity. Like, can you imagine like eBay being like the peer-to-peer marketplace in like of humanity in 50 years? eBay is like humanity's greatest creation. It actually kind of scares me a little bit. It kind of scares you, right? Actually, You think about like, if eBay is the greatest peer-to-peer market humanity has ever created, like we're not very good.
It won't be.
Right.
That's what we're
so there has to be, something far better. I think 4K is that solution.
Yeah, and Richard, you also have seen how NFT evolved over the last few years. What do you see in the year? What do you want to see the community and the whole ecosystem drive towards so the NFT really become a reality for adoption?
Yeah, so NFTs is like, in every single type of market in the early days, there's mass speculation. Whether it be crypto, whether it be derivatives, whether it be bonds in the 80s, whether it be real estate, anywhere. It's always speculation. So speculation is always needed. And so right now in the first speculation wave. That will, I think, end. That will come down, and then there will be build steady, and there will be new innovations. Like think about like there's a word for that. Recursive NFTs. Is that what it's called? Recursive NFTs.
That's
what about like what if we could put logic in NFTs? We write coding logic, like smart contract within an NFT, for example, right? That'd be pretty interesting. You execute. You can like well, I can say more about physical stuff, but like a lot of digital stuff, like there's gonna be a lot of innovation there, right? Because easily, but what would be fun would be like if we could like NFT a real life horse, and then brought them into Zed Run, and start racing them and breeding them, right? And then every year you have like a physical validator, like 4K or somebody else that says like this horse is alive, it's this condition, I verify it via genetically, it's got these stats, and then it affects it in game. It's like a hybrid of the two worlds. It's like Tamagotchi merging with the world, and you can like it's
breeding ground.
Yes, and then you can bring it into like VR worlds. Like you have like like a horse stable in VR world, like your little racing horses. You can do so much more with it. But the key here is like that bridge between the digital and physical world has to exist, and I think the NFT is a perfect vehicle for that. So in the next few years, I think this explosion is going to go. You look around you, everything can be an NFT. The chair, the box, the T-shirt, right? And it's like inevitable before we have all of these type of assets going on.
That's right. Richard, I love the vision. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you.